We have one more guest this month on the Icons, but it's a big one. Former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, who oversaw the growth of the most powerful league in sports from 1989 to 2006. First broad question, the NFL as a social change agent, there have been a lot of things that have happened recently, but broadly defining your role as you saw it to kind of steer the NFL to a path to maximize social change or to help.
Well, I always had the idea that the NFL was about 3 C's: competition, collaboration among the teams through the league, and community. So there was always a piece of my thinking, and that comes from Pete Rozelle. He thought the same way, and he was the one who started the United Way advertising campaign to take the helmets off the players, and he encouraged all the teams to be an integral part of the community, just as college football was.
United Way is a good example. How important was that United Way NFL relationship? It still goes on, but it was watershed in a way.
It was certainly watershed. You know, Commissioner Rozelle, as I said, started it. When I took over in '89, the advertising commitment to the United Way was very, very substantial. But more importantly, we wanted the teams to be involved with the local United Ways. So I went on the board of the National United Way right after I became commissioner in order to encourage each of the individual teams to be more deeply ingrained in their own communities.
Let's talk about some kind of seminal moments in a lot of people's perspective when you were commissioner and your reflection back on them. The first game that you either attended or pointed out after September 11 in Kansas City, what made that game so special?
It was the Giants playing against the Chiefs, and so you had a New York team in the heartland of America. And I was there with Gene Upshaw. The 2 conference presidents were there, Wellington Mara and Lamar Hunt, who obviously was the owner of the Chiefs. But when the Giants took the field, there was a roar of applause for the Giants. And that doesn't happen too often in Arrowhead Stadium. No. They're pretty rabid and they're pretty one-sided. They're great, great fans. But it was a sign of how America was at that time. Unfortunately, that's not where we are today.
It also is a sign, I would think, of how important sports is as a healing agent, and clearly not just in Kansas City, but around the country. Talk about that for a second.
Well, I think it is, and you know, why is it a healing agent? I think it's partly because it's a distraction from the workaday things that people have to do, but more importantly, I think it's the essence of competition, but it's competition based on teamwork. So you have both ingredients at the same time. You have teamwork on one side and competition between the 2 sides, and that's a microcosm of life.
So 8 years earlier, it's 1993, and you chose to take a stand to move the Super Bowl from Phoenix because of the Arizona stance not ratifying the Martin Luther King holiday. Successful outcome, obviously the goal of using the leverage and the business awareness the NFL brought to the table to make some meaningful social change there. Was it a difficult decision, and did it work out the way you wanted it to work out?
Well, it was difficult to take that decision, but you know, before I was heavily involved, the Super Bowl host committee and the league's Super Bowl committee had conversations about what would happen if the King holiday was not in place. So it was not a surprise. It was something that was part of the conversations going forward. Maybe people didn't think that the league would make good on what it had said, which is that it would not play the game unless the King holiday was passed. And then when it was passed, when we did adopt it, it was deferred, as you said. It was not canceled, it was not terminated. So we tried to have a balance between taking a position that was definitely an important position to take, but not being punitive. The key thing is to keep the competition on the field the way it has always been, and as far as I can tell, that's going to continue 5 years from now with the Patrick Mahomes and the others who are out there, fitting into the shoes of Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Ben Roethlisberger and others.
roles of franchises in communities. Let's talk about Katrina and the work that you did, and I saw it firsthand with the governor and mayor of New Orleans to basically keep the franchise afloat, literally and figuratively, and not move it or allow it to move to San Antonio. And that has to be one of the greatest social change moments as far as how far a league can go to protect a community's trust and interest in a franchise.
Well, you know, New Orleans was an outgrowth of the merger of the American Football League and the NFL. New Orleans had brought a lot to the NFL over the years, but I felt that whether it was New Orleans or Houston or any other city that could be the subject of a tragedy, that we owed it to the community to walk the last mile. We expect communities to walk the last mile in support of our teams, and we had to do it for them. And that, my perspective was what my parents used to tell me: a friend in need is a friend indeed, so be a friend to people in need.
And you were. The Tagliabue Initiative for LGBT Life at Georgetown. Talk about that, and then talk about how we think the whole LGBT and gay rights and diversity issues have progressed since you left as commissioner.
Well, the initiative at Georgetown was probably a decade ago at this point. I had gone on to the Georgetown Board of Directors, and the president of the university was working with students to try to make the place more welcoming to LGBTQ students. And my wife and I decided that we would endow that program at the university. We have a son who's gay, who heads a gay rights organization in New York City, so it was close to our home, but Georgetown was close to me for many, many years, and I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for Georgetown.
Not to mention, weren't you the all-time rebound leader at Georgetown for like a minute?
For a few seasons I was, more than a minute.
Sorry, I apologize. Was it Alonzo Mourning who then wiped your record out? Which center?
I think it might have been Craig Shelton, followed by about 15 other players.
Craig Shelton is not the name I wanted to deal with. How about Patrick Ewing? Or what?
Patrick was
we'd
part of
reinvent
it.
history.
Patrick was part of it.
Got it. So finally, where's the league generally? Way too general a question. Where's the league 5 years from now?
Well, based on what I'm reading, it may be that there'll be more football in London and even Frankfurt. But I think the key thing is to keep the competition on the field the way it has always been. And as far as I can tell, that's going to continue 5 years from now with the Patrick Mahomes and the others who are out there, fitting into the shoes of Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Ben Roethlisberger and others.
The key to me is to keep those who have the long-term interest in the NFL at heart engaged and interested, meaning you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
That's all for the Icons this month. Next month we talk hockey with two NHL executives, including NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly. Until then, we'll see you next time on the Icons with Rick Horrow.